All right. My name is Aaron Rhodes, and you're listening to the Shuttlecock podcast. We're sponsored by the Vinyl Underground at Seventh Heaven, offering new and used vinyl at 76 and Troost in Kansas City, Missouri. This week on the show, we have Morris. How you doing?
Hey, I'm good, man. How are
We
you?
great. We were just before we were recording, we are having a brief discussion about the Truck Henge Farm and how all the Grateful Dead hippies might have been onto something. The bear,
True,
great icon.
true.
We're gonna get into some post COVID, post civilization vibes. Maybe I don't know. Um,
100.
but yeah, no.
Revenant too. The revenue everybody's wearing first.
I'm cool with that too. Uh, I PETA can fight me.
Yeah.
But yeah, what I guess you I've read a few interviews of yours, and like I'm sure there's plenty of stuff out there about like I read like you talking about like getting Fruity Loops and like kind of some of your early music making stuff. But what you did mention in one or two interviews that I wanted to know more about from like early on was you said that your mom is a professor and teaches like a history of music class.
Yeah,
And
she teaches
where?
a. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, go on.
No, yeah. Where does she teach and what's
Okay.
all
Her main day to day is she teaches at Topeka High, my other alma mater, but she also teaches a course at the University of Kansas. It's a history of Black music course. I don't know what the exact term, like how it's spelled out in the syllabus, but it's literally that. And I think it's actually splintered into another one that's like specifically about hip hop. So I think she teaches a couple of like courses that are all housed under the African American Studies department at KU.
that? Oh, it's awesome. Do
Yeah.
you have you? I'm guessing you haven't like actually like taken a whole class of hers for a semester,
No,
but
it's
I'm sure
really
I'm
fun.
sure you get like bits of knowledge just
Yeah,
like all
yeah,
the
yeah.
time. Yeah.
I'm sure that would be a completely different lens, honestly, seeing her in that realm. Because I know it's like a bunch of athletes take the class because they think they can just like pass it, and
Mhm.
it ends up being a little bit more challenging than they thought. And she's like not really like giving anybody any passes. So I do remember one year when I still lived here, my all my good friends took her course because they knew her and they loved her. And I remember getting like a lot from them, kind of like about how much fun they were having in the class and the types of discussions that they suddenly found themselves in with her being sort of a facilitator. Just
Yeah.
like that course in itself starts like a lot of conversation. And so I think in a weird way, that's kind of where I come from, just like a lot of talk or dialogue
Yeah.
about music in a way that's like puts music at the focal point. It's like a serious rally point. It's almost kind of like the fulcrum that history kind of like teeters on. And like a lot of the conversations that my parents like brought me into or I was exposed to like young, you know? So much so that my mom just like she teaches a course about that. And in her world, you know, the Marvins, the Michaels, the Princes, these people are like uh James Brown, these people are like gods or almost like people who history is like intertwined with like moments
Yeah.
that they released albums, moments that they toured, moments where at one point James Brown, I think, performed on the night that maybe MLK was shot. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty goddamn sure.
Mhm.
And it caused like a riot, like these types of things. So that's kind of where I sort of come from in a way, where music is just somehow like the most important part of like the picture, even
Yeah.
if it's just the background. It suddenly is the foreground for these folks.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's like certainly like you don't have to look at music like that. There are always going to be people that are like, oh, I like this song, I like this band, and like that's the end of it. And and it's not like people need to like imbue it with like such a powerful thing all the time. But like I think it's a helpful lens for people that are really interested in music, and like it's a kind of I'm sure it's really helpful in like learning about other historical stuff, and yeah, just looking at it like that. um oh, and yeah, the other thing I want,
Kind
because
of like Forrest
you
Gump. Like you know how there's like all those amazing songs in
yeah,
Forrest Gump. Like, when they made that movie, you could tell that those cats like cared about the songs in which the moment that they like happen, and that's kind of like how I think my family is about like music. You know, they're just like intertwined. The music is up, full volume.
Yeah. No, and I was thinking about this even. Oh, well, I want to talk about the Pop.Morris series later, but even like when I've listened to those mixes before, like I feel like you're like also the type of person that like you think about like some event or just some like even just like hearing a word or a phrase and like you instantly think of like a song to go along. Like I don't know, I feel like I kind of like I'll just have a conversation with somebody and they'll mention like just some like kind of random term or phrase and I'll be like, oh, that's like that one song, or I heard a lyric like that. And like yeah, I think some people just like, I'm sure people do this with like films and you know whatever other types of art, but
for sure. Yeah, sometimes the synergy, when they get that right, you're like, oh man, like fuck.
Yeah, because what made me think that when listening to Pop.Morris was when, like, I don't know, I think there's sometimes when you're like blending songs where like there will be a keyword that's in like both of the songs.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, you thought to mix that because of that word. And then,
yeah. It's that on its face. It kind of ends up just being like sort of a pun in that way, because I just like, that was the thread somehow tied the two ideas together in my mind. I'm not really a lyric guy, but like sometimes like I'll just pick out two words. Even you nailed it. That's pretty much it.
I don't consider myself a lyric guy either. Like there are albums and songs that I've listened to like over 100 times, and I could not like that I still can like maybe tell you the chorus of, and it's just
100.
Yeah, I'm bad at gripping things like that.
Absolutely.
You also have mentioned before that your dad is a DJ.
For sure.
And he's worked at like a few different radio stations over the years.
Yeah.
No, any locally or?
Not here. Well, okay. When he was in college, he was on the radio at K-State, so he played music there. He was really into house music at that time, so he may have been one of the first people to ever play house music on the college station there. That may or may not be true, but then he moved kind of all over the place, and for like the last like 20 years, he's been in DC. He's kind of like an older guy now, so he's not as maybe prominent as he used to be. But in the meanwhile, my sister is on the radio too full time. That's like her job. So she kind of like took over the family business in a sense. In some ways, go ahead.
Sorry.
I was just gonna say Pop.Morris this season ended up being sort of like both an ode to the radio, but also sort of a jab at the family business. If you know that's so much in my background, like I got a chance to sort of like cosplay an experience that might be similar to what my dad or my sister might find themselves in, you know? And I remember when I played it for my sister the first time, she was just kind of like, so do you want to be on the radio? Like,
I'm sure you kind of feel like maybe like a kind of the black sheep in that sense, just because like you're being kind of like not what's the word I'm looking, not like rebellious, but like you're kind of subverting like kind of radio tropes and like themes and stuff, kind of.
And it it also it's kind of almost like a Mars versus Venus sort of thing, because like them as great personalities and great DJs, both my sister and my dad are amazing DJs, but they're aggregators, so they pick the best moments out of music that's made and they string it together, and I do that too, so I know that. But on the other hand, I'm also a creator, and so these two are sort of they're like opposed to one another in a lot of ways. Like the creator and the aggregator need one another, but they don't always work in like harmony. I think that we have like sort of like a misunderstanding, and so that's kind of like in a way the rebelliousness that you're describing. Because like as someone who has to go out and make it, I require sort of a fearlessness, sort of I shoot from my gut a lot of the time, and they come from a much more like tried and true sort of way. They've banged these joints in the club. They know what people will walk off of, They like they're like it's like they're like sort of scientists in that way, and they're very very good at it. But I understand both worlds, but you know, you just talk about this rebelliousness, and I kind of feel like that's how it like more materializes itself in our relationships. You know,
It's your punk rock energy that you've always seemed to had, I guess.
yeah, I gotta say fuck that, man. I gotta do my own thing. I gotta do my own thing.
Yeah. So
I get it.
So your dad is playing a lot. You mentioned like he was playing a lot of house music and stuff, and I know that like DC, Baltimore, and also you guys were in Philly at one point.
Yeah,
So,
for sure.
like, and those are all like really important scenes for all the club music and stuff. So what
For sure.
is he still mostly just doing like house music and stuff, or has that always kind of just been his thing, or is he?
He loves it, man. My dad is like the #1 house fan. Like he travels to Chicago every year for like this older house head convention called the Chosen Few, I think. And it's like if you went there, it'd just be like 45 to like 55-year-old black folks dressed kind of like in all white linen, dancing to fucking house music like all weekend. It's really, really cool. He goes there and camps. It's like a thing. He's super into it. He really loves Baltimore club music. And in Baltimore, you can hear it on the radio.
Yeah.
So just driving through there, I heard it a lot. And when I lived there, he never, you know, in some ways he's like really conservative. But when I wanted to go out and dance, which is something I did a lot when I was younger, he was always cool with me going to crime-ridden Baltimore to go find my fun. Like I kicked it in Baltimore a lot, and he like just gave me the pass just because I think he understood club music and sort of what, you know, what it was.
Yeah.
In a way, you know, he really likes it. But I think what makes money for him is mostly just like kind of like hip hop and R&B. So he's really good at that. Like it's more like a radio style DJ where you can just like bang out all of those joints in a row, kill it. Nobody's ever gonna walk off. It's gonna be great. But if you let him get in his bag, he's gonna play just like house music. He's gonna play house music like all night long.
And is your sister doing stuff in the similar vein to that, or does she branch off into other stuff?
She's, you know what? I don't know that she's really made a name for herself as a DJ, because like what really pays the bill for her, I think, is probably being a radio announcer. So she just goes and does that. And the DJ who's part of her duo, you know, I think she does the talking and he does the DJing. Like this kid is incredible. This guy's name is Malcolm X, and his mashups, his blends, like I played behind him before, and it just like knocked my socks off. So like I honestly don't even think that she has to step behind the ones and the twos, at least not on the radio anymore, because this cat has like all sewed up. Like he's like Pop.Morris on like steroids. It's insane. Like honestly.
Oh yeah, so you mentioned you were talking about how you came back to Topeka over the last few months, and you had been in Los Angeles just for several years before that.
Yeah, I think like 7 years.
Yep.
7 years. I think I moved there in like 2013.
Oh yeah, and so you kind of mentioned that like, well, you've talked before about like how it was kind of necessary to just I figure for like just professional reasons to be out there just making connections and stuff like that. So what I guess I was curious what made you feel like it was like safe or like a smart move to come back at this point? Like do you feel like you've kind of just reached everyone you can out there for the time being, I guess?
I mean, at this moment there is no Los Angeles. Like being there is like to be in a very claustrophobic situation. Like you could barely be outside without, it's like, yeah, it's intense. It's like an intense. I think it's like the most populous county in America, but it also has like the highest rate of COVID. So just like the amount of anxiety just like being there was so high, man. I remember just like that perfect like nexus of George Floyd, COVID, earthquake. It woke me up at like 3 a.m, rippled through my fucking apartment. I just woke up and was just like, this is too much. Helicopters flying over my shit. And so I kind of came out over the summer, just kind of like peep vibes, see what was good. And then as soon as I got back, it was just like, you know what, maybe it would be a good time to just like draw it in. And at that point, I'm still thinking about the election. All this crazy shit's going on. I'm like, maybe let's just like ease back. There is no real reach. Do all you can do. It's like there's nothing to do. Like at least between the months last year of like July and January, or December, it was completely just washed. There was nothing to do. You could not go anywhere. You could not. There's just nothing. There's nothing. So at least here, I feel like it's a little bit better for my mental. I'm like surrounded by like my family. Like I can kind of like, even though it's like a little less pretty, I'm like getting a little bit more stimulation like day to day. I think something about the flow here is getting a little bit, it's like a little bit better for me in terms of what LA was giving during pandemic conditions. But you know, when it opens up, we'll see what that situation looks like, you know. For the time being though, it's kind of like, I don't know if that's I don't think that's the way. I was talking, I'll put it to you this way. I was talking to some friends like there in LA, and I kind of like, a lot of my experience with people there who were from there was just kind of like me putting them almost on a pedestal. They like feeling like they were really privileged in a way. Like they never would have to travel anywhere for Christmas. They'd always be there surrounded by palm trees. Everything would be awesome. They went to high school probably with somebody famous. They were like, I mean, you grow up in LA. But when the shit started going down between, like I said, the protest and especially the pandemic, all these things kind of compounded, just like things became very scarce. You couldn't get wet wipes or toilet paper. People getting all these guns and shit in LA. Like this is like terrifying. You almost can't have enough bars in your windows. But I'm talking to my friends and they're like, you know, I wish that I could get out of the city. And so suddenly I started thinking about my position as somebody from Kansas as being a point of privilege, that I actually had like a secret hideaway that I could sneak away to whenever I felt like it was enough. I could just like ease away for however long, you know? And I think that's kind of where the farm idea sort of started to come from, was really just being like, well, how far can I recede into my own mix and still also be, you know, vital as an artist, still dig into my art practice, but really experience life from a different perspective, not one that's like so eye to eye with what's happening like every single moment, more hidden with somebody who's like more tuned in with their own inner world, and the art just being a reflection of that. It's almost, in its best is like a genius, but in its worst is kind of like an oddity sort of thing. It's like, look how weird it is when they are by themselves. It kind of shit. It just makes sense.
Have you been super interested then in like Kanye's whole like wilderness thing right now too?
For sure. I mean, everybody's like, I'm watching everyone embark on their own experiment, and so there really is no wrong answer. His is extremely intriguing to watch because like he has a ton of finance, and so watching him leverage all of the money, even if it means he has to like freak out on the internet to make the contracts work out the way that he wants to, it's just like he's wringing the towel out, trying to get as much dough as possible to make this like rural dream happen. And so just me as someone who's also trying to make my own version go, I can't help but wonder, like, is that the X factor? Like, is my dream going to be more successful with the more money that you put in it? But something tells me it's almost like the exact opposite. The more simple that you can keep it, the better. But like I said, it's all, everybody's on their own experiment because there's like no blueprint. We get to just like watch his almost like a reality show, and I get to like toil mine. No, whatever dubs I get to catch in building mine, I'll share on Twitter or however I decide to share it. But it won't be like Kanye's where his wife is leaving him and it's on the news and like all of it's like happening in the public, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, it's funny. I think I read an interview where like someone had asked you who you would like love to work with most at some point, and I think you said Rihanna and Kanye.
For sure.
And post like all of the like kind of MAGA weirdness, is Kanye someone you would still like kind of seek a cosign from? Because I feel like the Kanye cosign may have like kind of peaked at Yeezus.
Yeah, so did.
But,
so did. Now it's like cringe.
Yeah, are you still, so you're not still interested in that, are you?
No, at this point, man, like It's so hard to say. I go work for him under the right circumstances. I think it's kind of like, as I kind of continue to gain more skills, it would be interesting to see, like, I'm just living my life and I'm like working on my own Morris shit. I don't wake up and think about Kanye West. So like with that in mind, it would be the more time that goes on that we're like not working with one another, whatever point our X was to happen to overlap, it would be interesting to see what skills he's able to pull from me in that moment. Like right now I'm working on fucking Candles, doing mashups, doing all this different podcasts, doing all this different shit. Seems like what he does is when he grabs you, he just seeps on what you're doing. So just depending on what moment we were working together, it might depend on what that might, if it might be a good idea or not. Like there's been times in my life where I thought I had both the volume of beats that it requires to make, but also the sound. Like I knew what he would want in like 2015, 2016. So like I was in a good spot. But if I wanted to continually collaborate with him, my vision didn't extend that far past like a beat. I wasn't really farming. I wasn't really working on Candles. I wasn't really getting my hands into all these different layers of manufacturing. I wasn't trying to build my own farm at that point. So it's like, as time goes on, it's like it may be a point where it might make more sense. Even. Yeah. I might have more to offer to the situation than I had previously thought, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It was all on my external hard drive, but now it's kind of like more like in my head or something. I'm more thinking of myself more as an idea person, and in that way I can be more valuable. Lots of different types of conversation, not just like in front of the Ableton. It's like, okay, well, what are we thinking about fragrance? What are we thinking about packaging and design? What are we thinking? Like I can suddenly fulfill these roles a little bit better because I'm sitting in that like more like individually myself.
Yeah. Another thing, like what I was kind of thinking about also when it comes to you being back in Kansas, at least for now, is sure. That like, I don't know, like a few years ago when I first came across your music and everything, I was just like really like kind of impressed by like certain like collaborations you've done and just where your work has been and whatever. So I don't know, I think it's really weird though, because like since you've been in Los Angeles for such a time, I feel like there's a lot of people my age and younger in Kansas City that would be like blown away by like all of the stuff you've been able to do so far, but like just don't know about it.
I see.
Just because, yeah, I don't know. Do you feel like you kind of just keep to yourself more than most other artists?
Okay. Yeah, that's a really good question. That's a really good question. I think just more specifically, I didn't spend any time like digging into Kansas City. Like my leg into what was happening even after I left was Bear Club, and it didn't ever reach past Lawrence.
Yeah.
So it's like now that I'm sort of here, I mean, I don't know if you've seen like sort of my paper flyering campaign that I've sort of just been sort of tooling with. Just like
I've seen you post pictures of them. I haven't seen them in the wild yet.
They're in Topeka. I haven't gone to Kansas City really, so I'll put them up. I should try maybe get together a street team or something.
Yeah.
But I more so, I'm just like you're seeing me kind of like try and understand more about what the environment is, because I think when it comes down to it, also some of the things that I was programmed to do and things that I was programmed to react to, like were very Los Angeles type things, and those types of situations don't happen here. It's like even before COVID, it's just like a complete different game. But that doesn't mean that you can't be. That doesn't mean that people can't be aware of what you're doing. I just got to put the time in. So now I'm sitting here like literally with my hands in it, sitting in it, thinking about how I can be way more useful in the area in which I come from. Like I think maybe I even had a chip in my shoulder too when I moved to LA. I was like, bro, I want to do these things. I want to just blow my own expectations away. in a lot of ways, I think I did that. Like I did things I never thought I was going to do, and there's probably still more things to do. But just in terms of letting people hear about what those things were, it was like not even a priority.
Oh no, yeah, I think like it would have been like too easy. I think to like some other artists like accomplishes like one of these things that you've done, and like that's just the only thing I'm sure they would talk about for like years and years. But like you're sitting and you don't want to like rest on it, and you want to just keep building off it. But now that you are back, I feel like it wouldn't hurt your situation to like remind people like what has happened so far.
100%, man.
I did like figure out a quick like I don't know what you would call it, a maybe a collaboration highlight reel, maybe. Like,
okay, cool.
If anyone listening, like just for the people listening, I'm gonna run through some of these things really quick, maybe.
Okay, cool.
Just so they know, because even a few of these things I didn't know until like I was reading stuff like a week ago.
Okay, cool.
But, you toured with FKA Twigs. You did DJ sets opening one of her tours. You did like at least a couple shows with K Tronada also, right?
Yeah. I think we did one in Montreal. We might have done two in Montreal, low key. I only played with him in Canada.
And then at the Bear Club raves way back, you hosted Mickey Blanco and Riff Raff.
For sure.
And
Umpang, Emma Lou played there. That they had like their first. We dubbed it the all-girl rave, but it was like her, Emma, and like all of her friends like took over a Goomba rave, and it ended up being so good. I remember being so stressful for me because we had never had all techno all night, but that was what they wanted to do, and they did it, and it was a blast. And like maybe 3 years later, Disc Woman was like a thing, it was like that. Like extended, but Jamal's got some really good footage. We should probably put it online.
Oh yeah,
that was our biggest dub as far as I'm concerned. Mickey and them were cool. And just hosting Emma and like her crew at that time when it was like still such a baby of an idea was like amazing. Just to see it.
No, and to finish up, you also have production work with Leaf, Kalela, and Ian Isaiah.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
I didn't realize that Ian was in Dev's band on that when they were on the Igor tour, and that was like crazy. That like,
and likewise, Dev was in Leaf's band when Leaf played on David Letterman. Yeah,
that rocks.
Like I think played bass and plays guitar.
No, I don't know if I've ever seen footage of Leaf like playing with the band.
Yeah, it exists. It exists on Letterman.
No, yeah, I think the only time I've seen Leaf was just him like solo at Riot Room, and I think he might have had dancers with him, maybe. Yeah, but,
that makes sense.
Yeah, that was a cool show. And then something I know you. I think you've bumped into Frank Ocean a couple of different times. You haven't like worked on anything as far as I know, right?
No. I wish.
I think I remember you posting about running into him at a burger restaurant.
Yeah, me and Jamal were getting burgers drunk at Umami Burger. We were DJing at the Ace and left a long record playing and ran downstairs. And Frank Ocean was there at the bar, and it was just like we just like ran up on him. I was like, "Bro, are you Frank Ocean?" He was like, "Yeah." It's like, let me shake your fucking hand. But I had met him one time before that, actually, on the FKA Twigs tour.
Yeah, like it was the session with at Robert Pattinson's house with.
Oh yeah, but that was just
also.
That was with Earl Sweatshirt.
Yeah.
That was with Earl Sweatshirt. But I met Frank for the first time at the FKA Twigs show.
Oh yeah,
was what I was gonna say. And then the second time was at the Umami Burger. And I got the beats from me and Earl and Twigs shit, but it's like unfinished forever.
Oh yeah, I'm sure that was a weird time, whatever that was like.
Yeah, I mean Robert Pattinson really just wanted to make a beat. It was sitting in his like living room and shit. Like that's like his shit, and she had to just be like, "Bro, step out. We're gonna do this. Let's go."
has he like released music before, or is he just like doing a fun hobby thing with the,
Oh no, he had a bunch. He has a bunch of dough. So if he like wants to be
yeah.
into anything, he can. So his living room was like mine. It was just like Beat Lab, piano, mics. Like it was just like set up just like a nigga who makes beats. Like you look like he hosted sessions there or something like that. But she did.
Maybe gotta look out on the next Twigs album, see if there are any Pattinson beats. I don't know.
Wow, Shia LaBeouf would be shook. He'd be shook.
Oh man,
Like
speaking of down bad, our man
yeah.
Shia right now.
I know. They're still releasing movies of his right now too. So he's like, they're keeping his name in the press like a lot. At least if you like, you get canceled and you're like an artist or like a producer, like you just stop putting out music, you go hide away. Like this cat, the film studio is still running his name out there and shit. You know, he's like, he's super down bad. Like,
yeah, wait, no, because he was. What is he in that just came out? Is there like is it some movie, on Netflix?
Yeah, it's about a movie about a woman who gives a home pregnancy, and apparently it's amazing. So it's actually in my queue.
Something of a woman, or I don't know.
Yeah, she's like having a at home birth, and I think it goes like awry. But I think he may play the baby daddy. I'm not sure.
Man, I hate when the home birth goes awry.
I know. It sounds like this is like a tragedy. I gotta tap in.
Yeah. Another something I wanted to touch on at least though was you spent some time studying film, and I know I'm sure it like kind of comes in handy when you're figuring out like promotional stuff and like music stuff, but I don't know. I was curious who maybe some of your favorite directors are.
Okay, damn. That's a really good question. No one's literally ever asked me that. I watch a fair amount of movies. I think like less now. I didn't like film school was more like a social thing. Like I got like into film because I wanted to be a cartoonist. So I think low key a lot of like my favorite like filmmakers are cartoonists. Like I will forever love Mel Blanc. I will forever love Tex Avery. Like these are like textbook. And then the people who kind of came through to try to blur those lines, the Roger Rabbits of the world, like these movies were really impactful on me as a kid, and especially as a Black person. Like Black animation is like a whole piece of rent-free real estate in my mind, like where I'm thinking about Proud Family and Bebe's Kids and Black Muppets and like all of that kind of shit. So I think really that just like that is like my favorite. But you know, there's some like textbook sort of filmmakers that I will forever follow. You know, like I love Hitchcock. I've probably seen like too many of the films. I'm watching actually Werner Herzog's Masterclass right now. My homie like pirated all the master classes, so nice. Like 3 episodes deep into that. I like, you know, I think when it comes down to it, I like filmmakers who like, for better or for worse, just like continue to make movies. I think people who like only have like a few films out are like not, they're like not people that I really like fixate on. And I think that's a majority of filmmakers. I think some people like really focus just like on one film, but I'm like one of those guys who likes the dude who does a few bad movies, a few good movies, movies you've never heard of. Like I really love what's that guy's name? Steven Soderbergh. Like I think Steven Soderbergh makes amazing movies, and his like rap sheet is like ridiculous. Like he's made movies for popcorn. I think he made Ocean's 11, but he's also made movies that he shot like on his handy cam. These types of things, I like that.
No, yeah. So I would guess then that like it just kind of seems like you're into the auteur then. And
yeah, that's the word, the auteur.
Yeah,
that's it. I like the auteur like a lot.
Yeah, because like those are mostly people who are making movies like their whole lives, and I feel like you also appreciate on the music end like just the like the lifelong songwriters who go through like lots of different phases, and you know some better than others, because I know you appreciate Michael Jackson's music and Prince's music, and like I'm sure you've studied some of that pretty closely, and they're yeah, like those filmmakers that are kind of known for like different eras and but still having like a distinct voice throughout it.
For sure. I love that, especially in filmmakers though, you know.
Mm.
Like I love Terrence Malick. Terrence Malick makes some of the best movies like of all time. But he's been making movies for like 40 years, you know? It's like a lot to kind of like take in. And I appreciate that. I kind of go slow. I don't really like binge. I sort of, but dude has been making movies for that long. And I know I'm gonna enjoy it. I go really, really slow. It may take me years to get through the whole filmography, just knowing that there are some left, wait for the cat to die, etc.
Do you have like animation or film like ideas that like screenplays or stuff that you want to like pitch to people at some point, or have
Yeah,
you not developed anything that far yet?
I've never developed anything that far, but you know, it's on my mind. And I remember when I was at Super Deluxe, I got about as far down that road as I possibly could. Suddenly there were people with cameras, people who like took my ideas really seriously. I did some like writing room work there with Zach Fox and some other people and Fat Tony, just to create really funny content. And for the first time, it seemed like people were taking my visual ideas maybe even more seriously than my music. It was like, okay, cool. But then they went out of business. They got shut down. So I was like right there on the precipice. But I think if anything, just my experience in that world and thinking about it makes me wish, or maybe sort of imagine, a world where like being an artist could be more project based. Because like as a filmmaker, you know, you come out with the sketch of the film, the script, and maybe you have like some ideas visually on mood board or something like that. Then you go chase down financiers, and the financiers end up being producers, and then they see the film get made. I wish like my job would be a lot easier, I think, as like a musician, if I could work that way. If I could walk into a room and sort of pitch sort of these patrons or these producers on an idea and just be like, and this is gonna take me like $7K to get it done, round trip. Let me just get that. I think my product could be like a lot better.
Yeah.
But that's unfortunately not how it works. That's how movies work, not music.
Yeah, do you think that is just because like some people are like just so visual that like when they see the mood board they can actually put it together in their head, and like it's harder to communicate that just with musical stuff?
Yeah, for sure. And also, I mean, obviously the profit margin is so much higher on a film. Like a movie, they make their money 2 times, 3 times back. They're not happy unless they make it 2 or 3 times back, really. Like a CD or album, even the most successful is like, we're continually scaling our expectations back, even for Taylor Swift or like the supposed largest artist in the room at a particular moment. It's like our expectations for them starts to recede as like the product music gets to be less valuable, you know?
Yeah, no, it's not.
It's not like a movie.
Not a good time for that.
It almost seems like a movie's appreciating, because there's like all these different outlets that you can get your movie put out on, HBO Max, Netflix. There's all these different people that you can take your pitch to, and they might greenlight your production. Yeah. Whereas an album, I feel like the doors are starting to shut. Like the best you could hope for is like, I don't even know what best you could hope for at this situation.
Yeah, no, it's like, yeah, you can do like an HBO original or a Netflix original, but like I don't, as far as I know, Spotify and Apple Music are not like funding like new albums to be made. Like I'm sure they have some projects like that.
Yeah,
and,
Drake.
Like, they do like the radio shows and the like the movies and stuff, but nothing like it. Yeah, just a straight up like funded album in the same way. Yeah.
Not to say it's not going to be like that, but it's not that way now. But I do think that the parallel model at this point is like GoFundMe, Patreon type of situation, where people can kind of see this sort of idea coming together. They can see the trials and tribulations of like trying to see that idea come to fruition, and then they can also help you finance it. And I think that's more or less what a producer would do in that like traditional filmmaker sense, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I don't know like really anything about just the whole ecosystem of like movie production, but I have like I think I listened to some interview with this actress who also is like starting to direct, and like I guess her first movie is she's directing is kind of like a horror movie, even though she's not like super interested in the genre, but only like there's just like a really big niche for like independent horror movies, and like it's
Even bad independent horror movies sell.
like apparently it's super easy to make your money back even on like a kind of mediocre horror movie right now. So that's weird to me, but yeah.
I'm into it. Makes sense to me. I mean, it's almost like the worse the better in that particular genre.
Yeah.
You might get like a raspberry or something.
Yeah. Where was I going to go with that? Oh yeah, no, I did want to know more about when your work at Super Deluxe, because I feel like I only found out about it like pretty late in the process. But like, what was the whole like how'd you get hired there, and like what was some of the work you got to do there?
That was a really cool thing. My friend Leon worked there as a sound guy, but he also worked at a DIY venue called Non Plus Ultra as a sound guy. And so I think he ended up having his hands full in a way. And so he was like, hey, would you like to come over to Super Deluxe and work as the sound guy for like, I'll split half my shifts with you. And I was like, yeah, okay, cool. And I think he even was just like, yeah, this will just be a guy to come in and sort of fill my boots. But when I got there, I immediately just like kind of clicked up with the team. It was just like, it like lined up really, really well. So, you know, what was supposed to be sort of a temporary thing ended up being me getting on the payroll. They started developing all this new content. And so I was getting called in all these different capacities. Like officially I would show up and set up the live audio for the live side of performance. And so they always had this stream going with all this kind of like wild shit going on. So I'd have live mics going on if there were speakers, and just being a sound guy. And it would all go into Ableton. And then at the end of it, you know, when you shoot a TV show or a movie, the audio and the video get captured on two separate devices, like unlike your camcorder, which puts it together. So I was also in charge of what's called speeding, which is where I made sure that the audio was there and tracking with the video, you know? So that was part of my my day-to-day requirements. But then as it became obvious that it was like there was more going on, there was just more black people walking around, like Fat Tony, Zach Fox, his kid Nagashi Armada. There were like a lot of like kind of heads coming in. Carrie Foe. There were like a bunch of like just heads. Chuck English. So they ended up kind of developing a show out of like sort of just casual hangs. And that ended up, I mean, I think we only got 2 episodes in before Super Deluxe went under, but that could have been amazing. I think it was called At the End of the Day with Zach Fox. And yeah, I was in the writing room with that for like since day one. We just kind of like hatched what that was going to look like with the producer, director, Daniela, and kept it moving. And it was a really rewarding experience for me because I just was like, okay, so this is how it gets done.
Yeah.
Hang on one second. What's up, Mom? Okay. Sorry, my mom's like.
Are you good?
Yeah. But yeah, it was like, you know, it was a cool thing for me, you know. It just, as a guy who just does purely music, it's like, okay, maybe there's more out there for like for me, you know.
Oh, and man, that's terrible though, because like there was this show with Zach Fox, and then he gets the Vice show, and that like gets canceled after like 5 minutes.
Our show was the sort of that was like the test. Like they didn't have to like do anything. Like we alley-ooped to them. They took Fat Tony over there too, you know. Yeah. And we had been fooling around with Thrift Hall at that point for like months, you know. So they took the best of what we were doing there in that moment and tried to upsell it, but really it just wasn't time. And they did themselves dirty because it was really just a positioning play to try and take down Jesus and Mero. And those guys are Goliaths. So no matter how funny, no matter how cool, like they're never going to be able to be as cool as Jesus and Mero. I'm sorry, Tony. Sorry, Zach.
Man, Vice just continues to fuck up their own shit. It seems like despite knowing all like the right people and having some kind of budget, I don't know. It's weird. But
it's fucked, man. It's fucked. Yeah, it's fucked. No comment.
Yeah, I guess I wanted to get into some of the music you've released in the last year.
Cool.
Do you want to say I think I have to go on a somewhat, maybe not somewhat, a brief apology tour to all of the people I have offended with blog posts from when I was a teenager. You are one among them.
Oh, are you? I was offended.
Yeah, okay, because no, I wrote this down. I included the song you did with Aaron Cartier in
Okay.
a roundup, and I essentially called the production dumbed down trap.
Okay.
And
Okay. I forgot about this.
when yeah, I was concerned that you just hated me since then.
No.
But when I really could have said something just like simplified or reconstructed or just
Yeah,
if I put 5 more minutes of thought into it, it would have.
I understand.
I appreciated it, but it would have made more
It's
sense.
like slightly pre-Playboy Cardi too. So that now if you hear Playboy Cardi, a lot of his music sounds like that, where it's just like
Yeah,
copy and paste, where they're like it's like it sort of whips you into a trance because it's the same take used over and over and over again, if that makes sense.
yeah.
And that's kind of what that was. It's like this play on sort of repetition, you know.
Yeah. So yeah.
But now he's like a hyperpop god too. Like he's like in a whole other realm, Aaron Cartier. Like there's probably a room I could go walk into and be like, yo, I got a song with that cat. And they'd be like, what?
I haven't listened to any of his like he put out an album like late last year, right?
Sure. I really don't know. It just bubble up into my my feed because of like Young Skirt. But he's like a hyperpop dude. Like he makes really crazy music. And obviously Dylan Brady produced and directed like his first videos. Like those guys are clicked up hella. So there's a connection, but I was like pretty surprised at what I heard. It's not too different from what we made, but it's like pretty out the window.
No, yeah, that's a very like it's hard to exactly, I feel like, place, because like there is like the big Spotify hyperpop playlist that's been around for like at least a year or two, but like people are like kind of latching on to that term.
The term.
And like yeah, just artists like locally that I know, they're like, oh yeah, I make hyperpop. I'm like, it's weird that it's caught on in such a way, but like a lot of the music's like,
as a guy who tried to create his own genre, it's funny to me because people thought my genre name was weird, but then this one, they let a Spotify playlist algorithm put it together and give it a name, and they love it. So it's like it almost seems like people love the NPCs more than they love the real players at this point. Like straight up.
And Morris is a real player.
I am a real player.
Maybe the main character, maybe, if you will.
In certain situations, I'm giving main character energy.
Spotify, where is the Goomba Wave playlist? I need to know.
God damn.
No, yeah, but something I wanted to talk about. So like I've kind of been thinking about this, like even in terms of like Cardi's music and Uzi and a lot of rappers that are popular right now. Like it's funny because people like love like joking around about like ad libs, but like really I feel like there's a much bigger conversation about their use that could be had that people aren't having. Do you know what I mean? Because like I think the way you use like all of these samples in like these little drops in a ton of your songs, like the Morris one, and then there's the siren you use sometimes, and the damn, and then like the kids cheering. Like I don't know, I think it's really fun to have like when an artist does have like this kind of palette of like drops and ad libs and samples and stuff that gets used throughout the work, because I don't know, I think it I don't know, I think it I don't know exactly how to place this, but it's like it has to do with like, you know, like anyone can write, like, you know, the same love song gets written like 100 different times every year. But like to hear that same love song, but with like, you're like, oh, what if it had this Morris drop or this ad lib? Like that to me is like
Yeah.
what makes it interesting sometimes. I don't know. Does that make any sense at all to you?
It totally does, man.
Okay.
It totally does. It's kind of a symbolic thing, just to be able to like sort of reach your hand into a song and leave almost like this footprint in a way.
Yeah.
Very musical. If it happens enough and there's sort of or it occurs enough times in the music and people sort of start to understand the symbolic, whatever it is that you're trying to do with it, I think it starts to recede away and becomes just like another part of like you know, this musical soup or something. It just kind of like it becomes less what you notice and more kind of like it's almost like the glue that holds everything together. At least that's how I feel about it. I've used it enough times that I don't even think about it now. I listen to my own music back and it's like those parts aren't even there anymore. There was a lot of time too, you know, before I got into putting my name into those gaps where I left silence there, and people seem to really like that too. So I and that's how they get made too. There be gaps there, and I'll go in and kind of like do those drops. So maybe like as an artist, you know, or maybe I shouldn't even say this, but I kind of thought about maybe to make a delineation in people's heads about what the final product is. Maybe those drops should only be in these mixtapes, and the drops shouldn't be in the albums, and the albums should just be those blank spots. You know,
but that's kind of what I think is fun about it, though, is like I think because all of these like classic albums throughout history, like whatever everyone's favorite Beatles album is, or their favorite like Michael Jackson album, or whatever, like that those don't have any sort of like samples or ad libs or whatever, but those types of things are like omnipresent throughout like mixtape culture and like all like what are now like classic mixtapes from
That's
like
where I got it from.
Yeah, so like I think it in a way like I love that you have some of the drops on Good Morning I Love You, because I think it's kind of elevating, like that's you elevating mixtape culture and like internet music culture,
like it deserves
to like classic status. Yeah,
it's almost it's like it's a sign of the times, like just the inclusion of the drop in a way. Like it is like when I scroll through the new rap album, that's like almost the first thing I listen to. It's like I'm gonna listen to it the night it drops, and those first 30 seconds of the track usually are gonna tell me who touched that song. Yeah. And even the lack of that causes debate online. People are like, well, why didn't Cardi put his drop there? Where is Weezy? And so I'm just like really tuned into that. Like that gives me a thrill in a sense. So even just to be able to like participate in that culture, that still makes me feel something, because I feel that way when I pull up. That night I listened to Cardi's new album, I was waiting for Pierre's drop. Like that meant something to me with that particular record. It's like if to not have it there, it was almost like a wrestling. It was like, are they beefing? Like, are they like like what did Pierre not come out there? Why wasn't he out there? These are things that are going through your mind. So I like just to think that anyone would even consider me in that pantheon or think that I had anything to do with that world, that gives me a feeling. So that's why it's still there in my music. But then as a creator, now I see all these symbolic reasons why it should be there. So I hold it proudly. The day I get to like get that drop off or get my drops off like that on Ye shit, that'll be like the crazy shit. Then it really will be elevated to like an album status. You know what I mean? It really will be like God tier. When you hear that shit cut through Travis Scott, it'll be like, oh. And not just at the beginning, but like the middle, it's like woven into the beat. Like I think I might be the only cat doing that. Weezy shit comes at the top, Pierre comes at the top, but I got mine's almost like a musical element now that just like it's part of the fabric of the song in a sense. So once that happens, then it really will be elevated to the status you're talking about. But that, in a weird way, that might be goals for me now that you've said it.
Oh yeah, no, that's great. No, and also like I think to bring it back to the DJ stuff, like and the radio stuff, I see it as like it's the drops are like they're important for many reasons, I think. So
They keep you so
there's
present.
that.
Like you
Yeah.
hear that shit cut out, and you're like, oh shit, what's going to happen?
No, yeah, and I see you using all of these drops as like also as like maybe I feel like you put a lot of importance, or like you care for a lot of, like, because you know these mixtapes and these radio shows where these drops are really present are like these kind of like rap shows, but also like dance hall shows. And I know
Yeah, they
you're
Jamaicans,
into,
bro.
yeah, like because I love going to I usually go to see family in New York like once a year, and I love like finding whatever like
The pirate.
the dance
Yeah,
hall radio station
yeah.
is, and then like you know it's the DJ shouting at you like every 5 seconds and
I love
doing
this.
like all the drops, and like that's just really fun for me, and I feel like you probably have a similar appreciation for it.
For sure. My family, yeah, I've heard these types of things. The Trinis, it's like almost like warfare. I love the sound. That's a cool thing for me.
Yep.
You nailed it.
Another thing I wanted to get to was there's the nature element of the you've spoken before about the Goomba wave and how Goomba is about being in nature.
Sure.
So what struck me today when I was listening to, I think I was listening to the debut album project, and then I'd listened to Good Morning I Love You recently, and there are the nature sounds on tracks on both of those albums, like the whole like outro on Good Morning I Love You is like it's kind of like just crickets and like forest sounds.
Kansas nighttime dot wave.
Yeah. So no, and I had just, so I was listening to all this stuff, and then I had just read so this is like not even a question but more of just a thought I had, but like you also talk sometimes about like searching for kind of like timeless sounds and melodies when you're making your music, just like you don't want it to be like tied to some like trend or like, you know, just
really
short.
Yeah.
So and then I thought about both of those things at the same time. I'm like, what is more timeless than nature, I guess, you know? So it's like it makes sense that you
eternal
use those sounds. So hopefully,
yeah, for sure. Now you're talking.
Warming doesn't fuck up the timelessness of nature, but for now it feels pretty timeless.
It's something that we'll get to enjoy, but like when you think about the people like past us, it's like the window starts to close like a little bit more and a little bit more. And in that way, I feel very privileged to be able to kind of like experience it, take it in, and even sort of like play a part in it, because it's definitely this changing sort of situation. It's never fixed. It's never a fixed point. It seems like it's always like, you know, moving around.
Have you been spending more time outside since like COVID started and like there's less like indoor stuff to do?
For sure. I have 100% been tapped into that. I was really, really into gardening before the quarantine kind of came down, but now I'm sort of in a spot where, you know, I'm not in California, so it's harder to grow it all season. So now I've really been into my like hike bag, like really, really been into my hike bag. I think I went like on a 3 mile yesterday. I've just been really using my walking shoes. To kind of like, just to kind of maybe get at your last question too, like, it's a, like, you know, you brought up some really, really good points for me that I kind of like need to like really let resonate. And I need to sit with them just from a branding sense or like a artist sense. But the first one being that Kansas City doesn't know, or my area doesn't really know, doesn't have the awareness about maybe where I've been. But the second one being something that's come up like a few times, but it's what is the Goomba, or what is the Goomba wave, and really just clarify for people how all of that sort of intersects with the nature and sort of kind of just like firm that up for people, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
For like me, I think it's probably pretty subjective, but I know that Jamal and I were always like kind of like different, sort of almost like this sort of sugar and spice sort of like feel. But what we did sort of share was like this we spent like a lot of time like kicking it out there, like just being kind of like, we weren't like farming or anything like this, but we were definitely like kicking it outdoors, like a lot of drugs done outside, a lot of smoking. I mean, it's part of just being from Kansas, you know? But I think it's kind of like maybe time for me to just like elaborate a little bit more on what the Goomba is and kind of like bring that nature sort of home for people. Plus, maybe it's like won't be as hard to understand just because like we go outside and it's that way. But I think I had a question a lot when I got coastal. They were just like, well, they maybe didn't have as much of a relationship, an everyday relationship with sort of the outdoor situation or what have you, you know, or they just weren't thinking about it. They were very urbanite.
Maybe we need the official Goomba Wave hiking guide video. And you can explain it to the people that way.
Yeah, man. It's something I think about like a lot. I really have thought about it. I mean, shit. What is Goomba Vid? I got like a bunch of like sticky notes up here about what I should be doing. So the fact that that kind of came up, it correlates with this nature thing, you know. So I'm gonna elaborate more on that this year. I think the cool thing about working more with video too is that I'm suddenly able to tell a more elaborate story, whereas I feel like it's really tough, for instance, to elaborate what a Goomba is or what Goomba Wave sounds like. Weirdly enough, just using the sounds, like that's not enough to describe it. You almost need this full experience. Like, and I, you know, honestly,
this is why you don't get the funding for the albums, and you get the funding for the movies.
True. I mean, honestly, I feel like the guy who understood that the most was Tyler the Creator, dude. That's why he it's very three-dimensional. He had clothes, he had good videos, the music, like all of it he would use to sort of tell the story. He wouldn't just, if it was just the music, it wouldn't have been as potent in a way.
Yeah, you know? No, it's all about, it's like, yeah, he was able to like create his own small universe, and I feel like once you guys are able to do more video stuff, like I'm sure you'll have a similar, yeah.
You got it.
What else did I want? No, yeah, because you mentioned you want to do more video stuff this year, and
that's all I'm focused on, really.
Yeah, because I don't know. I think like had you been like fully off of Twitter for a while, like until like sometime last year?
Yeah, I was very disengaged. Like before, like almost exactly a year ago, I was like the most obsessed with Instagram I could possibly be. I was doing all this like content. I did like a really cool paid animation for like it was an advertising campaign for Adidas. They gave me like, I worked with the team to get like all the assets together. It was like a thing, and it just came out on my Instagram. I wasn't even thinking about Twitter. Like they were just more interested in me as a micro influencer is the term I just kept getting, and I could do it all on my own. It was awesome. And at that moment, I was just like, yes, Instagram is my meal ticket. I'm not thinking about Twitter at all. But as things have kind of gone on, I started to deplatform really from all of them. Like I want to get off, but Instagram is like the first one on the chopping block. Let's just go to Twitter. It's a better way to just focus on the message and less bullshit.
Yeah, because I feel like along with like your changes in social media stuff, I don't know. I feel like I think you have had more of a just open the floodgates approach to like, because you put out like 5 different EPs and then the album last year, and I don't know, what was there a specific moment that made you want to just like be less like kind of behind the scenes about things and just let everyone have it?
I think you went at it the right way, man, because like now that I'm thinking about it, I gotta be honest, like just being on Instagram made me a very self-conscious person. And so the only things that I really wanted to participate in were just like really surface level, and I didn't have to risk very much. Like getting a paid campaign from Adidas, of course I know that's going to perform. No matter how many clicks it got, I got paid for it, and it was with Adidas. It's like a flex. Yeah. Whereas, you know what I mean? It's like a different sort of situation. Like and now that I'm off, I'm a lot less self-conscious. I'm a lot less aware of that world. It's kind of like very influencer culture, both being too. So Twitter is like a little bit more hospitable. It's almost like, I feel like it's more hospitable for a creator, and Instagram may be more of an aggregator's platform, unless you're like a really high level creator. Unless you're like Kim Kardashian or somebody who's like super botted out with all this engagement, it's really tough to punch through the algorithm. So it's really best to just aggregate content on there that you already know perform. Whereas on Twitter, every day you get on there, it's the Wild West. It's just very new, very fresh, for better or for worse. And so that's where you're able to actually like create in a way. Like Instagram now feels very confined in that way. Like it makes me feel suffocated by perception and awareness of just how far the impact is. I'm thinking about the algorithm. I'm thinking about way too much shit. Whereas Twitter, I feel way more empowered as a creator, and it's not an empowering space at all. It's just by comparison to Instagram. And YouTube being the most, it's like the libertarian model. It's like so free. They want less government. They want no oversight really at all. You can get everything pirated. It's like everything goes.
No, yeah, and what I because you mentioned in like one of the Truants interviews you did a while ago that like you were being very conscious about when, at least like back then, like when
Sure.
to post stuff online and like how often to like release music, because you thought like, I will make more of a statement by being very selective about when I post new stuff. So do you think it's just kind of like more of the sign of the times that you have to like put out like a higher quantity of stuff, even if it's not like major projects, just to like, I don't know, find more support?
For sure, man. Like I think especially in the type, like I took 4 years off from not making music, and when I came back, I was listening to music and I was always watching it go, but I wasn't really participating in it. I was like living life, doing my shit. But in that time, I just like saw like the whole new tide come in. And so now when I wake up every day and I put my artist hat on, I feel like I have a lot of work to do in order to scale all this new ground, get new people engaged with what I'm doing, just expose new people to my signal. It's a whole different world now. Like, so with that said, it's kind of like I kind of can't afford to not be. I need to be on it every single day. I need to be because I took 4 years off. I needed to go as hard as I can in the paint with as much material, everything I can do. I have to fight back against this. In a weird way, it's like an algorithm that's squishing me, because like there's more and more advanced computers that are coming in through Spotify, iTunes, what have you, to kind of make it harder for your music to get to people. They say it's easier, but I don't know. It's like, unless you pay or there's something going on, it's like I have to increase the volume when I shove it into that system. So there's a fighting chance. And if not, I might never get a chance to permeate people's desk or their speakers ever again, in a way. Like I could get buried against just like the rising tide, the volume of new music. Like I have to fight back against that. So I'm gonna be making music and putting it out like this for indefinitely, until I feel like I've clawed myself into a good spot where I don't have to, quote unquote.
Yeah, no, because there's that whole bullshit of like the Spotify CEO is like, artists have to put out a new album every year to like remain relevant and make money. And it's like, it fully sucks that it is that way, but like you either have to play the game or not. And like if you can afford to play the game, it's like, yeah, you might
get in there.
Well, like try and get in there. So yeah.
Get in there, man. Get your hands dirty. So that's what you find out.
Some people are like a little like, and I get it. Like I get like the full like artistic purity.
It's a privilege though, to think that you wouldn't have to work. Like if you worked a good year and made tires, you think that they're gonna hire you to come in and make tires one time every 4 years, bro? No. Like even if you ran that tire company, you think as a CEO you're gonna show up one time every 4 years, make all these sweeping changes and just walk away? The machine's gonna just work? No. In any other industry, it's not okay. So as a guy who works at the MP3 factory, I gotta crank off MP3s every day.
So it really just is like the decision you have to make of like, do I want to be a working artist, which is like what you have chosen, or do I want to like make this a fully pure and personal thing and, you know, be subject to,
Sure.
like not finding relevance or whatever.
Or maybe not even being an eat off of it. You might have to work at like McDonald's or something like that to offset your costs.
Because what I'm specifically thinking about though is Ebony Tusks. Like, you know, they took like 5+ years on their album, and it's like amazing, and they probably wouldn't have been able to do that otherwise. But
I see.
It's like I think they made that decision. They knew, they thought about that.
Yeah. Well, okay.
You're
so there's
taking
something
the flip side.
But as a producer, it's cool because like I get to work at my own speed. But then other artists that I work with, they have their whole other timeline. Like me and Leaf, for instance, have been working on a record together for about 4 years, and it's amazing. I don't know when Leaf decides he wants to put it out, it'll come out. It's great, you know. And likewise with that Pop.Morris record, it's got a 4-year timeline on it. And so as I put on different hats, certain artists just got on. I'll wear it for a certain time, you know. As a Morris, I'm moving really, really fast. Pop.Morris, I think we're moving on a 4-year, 5-year cycle. And working with other artists to just see how that kind of like, it's almost a privilege that I get because I get to experience all of those different timelines. But the problem for me is that suddenly you might not be able to like survive if you're waiting for a bunch of people who are on a 5-year timeline. Yeah. If you're waiting for all of the press, if I was waiting for Leaf for 5 years to put out his new record, I wouldn't have been eating. So I gotta like turn up on Morris. I gotta go DJ. I gotta go be a working artist.
Yeah, no, it's kind of funny. Like I even have been more cognizant of like seeing this happen in like rock music right now too, because like on like a huge scale, there's like Matt Skiba going to play in Blink-182 because Tom left, and then like in his remaining time, he gets to go back and do Alkaline Trio or whatever. But then also like there are all these like younger hardcore bands that like they have their like tough hardcore project, and then they have like their pop project. So like if both of them are decent enough, they can tour all year and like just hop between like their 2 or 3 projects they have and effectively be working artists, even though like maybe their vision of you know when they were a kid, like being in one giant band, and like you know that's not realistic for a lot of people.
I understand.
So
yeah, you got to make it work for you in a sense. I saw King Gizzard turn up though, and they really punched through the noise for me. That like the year that they put out those 7 records, I was so plugged into King Gizzard. I was like, what are they going to do next? I really, really enjoy like that ethic meant something to me because especially because I know they're a band. It's like putting that many people into a room, making that many decisions. Like it's like it fucked me up a little bit. It's like, damn, okay. I was paying attention.
I guess I'm sure it's probably like I've listened to a couple of the records. Like I'm not a huge fan, but like I'm sure it does become kind of fun when you're invested in it and being like, oh, this is probably like when they let this member get to decide this stuff, and like it kind of opens up like a whole universe like that.
For sure.
I wanted to ask about because you mentioned the Pop.Morris stuff you've been working on, the sequel to Good Morning, I Love You. That is basically finished. You sent me a link.
It still needs to mix it like at all, but we kind of get it out a little bit, just like let people get tough with it since it's in purgatory.
Yeah. No, but it has my full endorsement. Any record company that is listening should probably hit you up about it. I know you may not have maybe you do need a visual mood board to, because you mentioned you wanted to do like visual stuff with it, right?
For sure. And we have like a really cool book that we put together, like a coffee table style book. Like we shot like so many amazing images. We actually, our good friend Simran lives in Los Angeles. She's from Cupertino, but she lives in LA. She's a really good photographer. She actually did like the photography and I think graphic design for Queen and Slim, that Netflix show.
Mm-hmm.
But she shot us like a fully styled shoot. Her good friend Kay Marquez she's Ocean's personal stylist. So she styled me and Maul for like probably like 100-page shoot, and we put it together. We're still waiting on like text blurbs. This kind of all being new of the liner notes, but I always imagined that this would be sort of the mood board, like for the album, or if there were going to be accompanying visuals, is just dig deeper into what we just put into print, because we could do that, you know?
Yeah, that's great. I wanted to know, like, do you kind of just like do you want like a really big like label placement for that album to happen, or like do you just want it to happen on vinyl, or like what are your kind of like wants for that whole project? Because I hope it comes out the way you want it.
Sure. Let's put it out there. Let's just put it out there, almost as a way for me to like reclaim it, to like just like claim.
We're gonna manifest it.
We're gonna totally manifest the shit. So in there's a few ways that albums get sold. Sometimes basically the way that we want to do it is we want to license that album to the biggest, largest entity that we possibly can. And usually a licensing deal will have stipulations. It'll be about region. It'll be about the duration. It'll be all these like negotiating terms that we can really go back and forth on. But the main crux is that we retain ownership, whether it be in the immediate future or even just like, we gotta hash it out, but it has to be licensed. And really, we really want to be able to get like not even in advance, like they need to just be able to break us off in exchange for that license. And this is how like a lot of albums do get sold. Like especially when you're talking about records that get upstreamed from smaller labels, they will the bigger label will go and fucking pick it up. Like let me think of a good example. Rye, A Woman, that record came out totally indie, like I think maybe even a year before even anybody heard it, and I think it got upstreamed to Polydor. They licensed it to them, and the label licensed it to them because Rye had already sold the record. But that's just how it goes. But we maintain ownership over it. We get full rights over it. It's not no label owns it, so we are in a good position to be able to license it on our own. And I really want to be able to get like 40K, 50K off that record. On that side alone, and we can, that's not even touching the publishing. That's not even touching the pub. We can talk about that. If the label itself, like many labels, has like a functioning publishing side, I'm willing to consider having that conversation. But I want to retain ownership of that almost like outright. They get the license, the rights for the master to be able to distribute it in their methods. Maybe they handle the digital, the vinyl, and the cassette, however they see fit, and we just gotta hash it out. It's a licensing deal. It's a licensing deal. That's the key. And Stone's Throw understands that. They knew fully who they were sort of getting involved with when we got involved with one another. Like we had the A&R that we worked with. We had the same agent when we were both working as artists, Matthew David. Like we shared some similar people in the team. So they always knew me as sort of this kind of like outsider, he's going to do things his own way kind of way. But as things got further and further into it, it became obvious that like we were going to require like maybe a little bit of help to sort of like push it through. And these guys would be able to sort of help facilitate that. And so like we did the song and dance in a sense, but I'm still just not sure about the fate of that record just because of the way that the priorities of the label lay at this point. And that's honestly just kind of putting it like politically nice, Like their priorities are in a different spot. And Doom just died too. So they're in a spot where they never have to put out another record to turn a profit. They don't care. And they're one of their biggest breadwinners, like just died. Like their whole mode is completely different. So our chances of that happening are like slim. But meanwhile, we recorded it 2 blocks down the street. Maul and Tom Richmond we're working on a record together. And the main engineer down there at Stone's Throw is this guy named Colin. Colin's Tom Richmond's roommate. So they're all kicking it. They greenlit. Stone's Throw let Maul record and mix his album there at Stone's Throw even. So we're like in the pipeline, like they're engineering our shit.
Is that the Butane album?
Yeah, and that's kind of behind the scenes. Like there's no where that will since there's no liner notes even, there's no reason for it to even get printed anymore. But like they did this with full awareness, knowing that we're all kind of like stumbling towards like this a larger conversation. And where it lay right now, I just don't think they're just not, I don't think it's gonna be a good fit anymore.
No, that's hope it didn't make you disclose more than you wanted to there.
No. It's not like that.
I was just curious because it is a very ambitious project that I
don't you think it should be upstream? Like you heard the record, like that record will hit so much different coming out like from a label. And to be honest with you, bro, like I told, like it's not just me, it's like Lucas and Alex Chaney, two amazing performers. Like I told them at the end of our last tour, like in Mall 2, it's like, I'm never going to ask you guys to just get into a Hertz van that we rented. Like the next record, the next project that we do, we'll be in a Sprinter. This is going to be a completely different and better experience. We're all going to be 5 years older, so our knees are going to need that much more leg room. We're not going to leave for less than a Sprinter. And so since that hasn't happened, we're not going to do it. But don't you think that record deserves to be like...
Yeah, it deserves
compared to, especially elevated above our other work.
A fader premiere of some sort, and just like a lot of promo and all that, because
we did the fader shit on our last shit and it didn't even do anything for us. Like the fader debuted Gone.
I mean more like basically just like the major cosign of it, and like because the magazines and the blogs and everything still play into how you distribute stuff as a indie musician. So
yeah, it matters, man. It totally matters. I think that record deserves that. They might not talk about AA or anything else that I'll do, or Mall even, but that record and Mall and Morris, like they deserve to sit above the rest.
Yeah. Okay. I've taken plenty of your time. I want to hit a few quick things before we're done. Sure. So you've been doing the Pop.Morris 5. So that's the first 4 were like these just kind of like hour-long mixes that you would post.
Well, the last one was like I did like 3 hours, but I kind of put it up in hour blocks.
Okay, yeah. But yeah, the latest series of them, Pop.Morris 5, is you're putting out in kind of like podcast form. And no, I was listening to one of the episodes today, and I love you had the Craig David mashed up with Lady Gaga, and then the Uzi over the Darude Sandstorm.
Yeah!
Also really sick. No, yeah. So, and I think the Pop.Morris series, I'm sure it's been at least somewhat beneficial to you so far in like maybe building on your audience, because like I don't know, it is like this like long DJ mix effectively, but like you're using like that's the title, like you're using like almost all pop songs that like really any casual music fan knows about. So I feel like it's pretty easy to have like crossover there, like because I'm sure like you can do like just as much of a mix of like obscure kind of deep cuts for the heads or whatever if you want to, but like this is kind of a cool bridge into the world of like DJ mixes for like a more casual fan. And as someone that's not really versed in like electronic music and DJ stuff, I appreciate it, and all the mixing is really cool.
Thank you, man. I love doing it. I appreciate you actually like sitting through it too, because it's a lot, but yeah, I like doing it. It's fun. And honestly, pound for pound, like if I look at my sales on Bandcamp, I think that Pop.Morris has done the best for me. So like, especially like CD sales, people like really like to listen to it for some reason and just like buy it from me. So I keep it going because I like doing it, but people seem to also enjoy it in some neck of the wood, especially Japanese people. I get like a lot of Japanese people on Twitter like talking about Pop.Morris. I'm like, what the hell are you? Okay, that's cool.
That's great. No, yeah, and all of your recent releases and even a chunk of your back catalog is on your Bandcamp right now, and you're making like kind of custom like limited edition CDs. Like are they basically like made to order at this point?
Yeah. I
That's
mean,
cool.
that's the way they had been up till like this last couple months, and then now that I'm sort of laying it a little bit more, I got like a new flow where I'm sort of there's just a little bit elevated. I'm like sort of making them buy the release. You can kind of like see what's going to be in it. It's got a cover and like a little OB strip that will actually tell you like, you know, what information there is about the release and shit. But it's still just direct, straight from me. I'm giving, yeah, you just got to kind of purchase one, but I'm trying to put more information on the CD than I did before. So you might be surprised right now.
Those are at goombawave.bandcamp.com. Those are,
yep.
yeah,
yes, sir.
go grab those. And so yeah, there's the Pop.Morris mixes, and then the instrumental EPs you've been putting out, and some of the back catalog. And lastly, maybe most importantly, you have candles.
I still have candles. The candles.
Tell me about the candle journey thus far.
The candle game has been very, very nice to your boy. I see candle maker in my future. I mean, I just enjoy doing it, and I had been buying a lot of really nice designer candles from France and just like all over the place, just really doing it. That's really what I was doing in my time off, was gardening and buying expensive perfumes and shit like this, clothes and shit from Japan. So now I'm like, well, how do I kind of add to that instead of like having to go out and buy everything that I like? What would it be like to make, like try and engineer some of these things? Yeah. And so that's how I got to the candle, and the candle was like perfect because like you can actually make that. And so that's been cool, man. I'm working on my second fragrance right now, which I think will be more for kind of like snobs or something, but I think it's gonna smell really good, and it's gonna have like a live weed shake in it. So it'll be like, And actually, this is the tidbit for everybody for like making it this far, is that my next shit is like the candle thing was just to kind of get people plugged, but I'm really been working as a coffee roaster. And so Morris Coffee Co. is like really like the main shit. Like I haven't even showed pictures or any of these kinds of things yet, but I want people to like get into the coffee thing with me this year. That's what you're gonna see me turn up the Bunsen burner and get a really, really good dark roast.
That's really exciting. What scents do you have on the candles so far? I'm interested.
Okay, well, there's only one available now. It's a lemongrass basil, and it's got live basil flecks in it. So it's got a very nice green, light, almost like spring sort of feel to it. But it's nice. And I might as well tell them. Okay, the second one is tobacco vanilla with weed in it. It's like pretty much my essence. It's like what I would be probably wearing if you were to just pull up on me and give me a hug. So it's good. It's good.
No, that's great. Is there anything else you wanted to plug before we wrapped up here?
Yep. No, man, you're an amazing podcast. Like you honestly dove deeper than I ever could even imagine. So thanks.
I'm glad. I feel like the occasion called for it. Yeah, I remember.
Next level.
Yeah, no. Where can people find you on social media and everything? At
this point, just at P.Morris, or you can reach out to me on email, morris@morrismakes.com, and I will get back to you. If you send me like your shipping address, I'll send you a drop box, like a care package with some shit. Maybe not the candles, but I'll definitely send you something to sink your teeth into. I promise.
Oh, sweet. Yeah, no, and people can follow at Shuttlecock Mag on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Shuttlecockmusic.com is the website. Shuttlecockmag.bigcartel.com is the web store. There's t-shirts, photozines, and buttons, and soda podcast prints are available. Oh, maybe like 15 of those are left. My friend Patrick did some great risograph prints. And yeah. What else do I have? I don't have anything else. Thank you again for being.
You shipped them in a tube?
What's up? Oh no, they're just like
you ship them in.
No, they're like US letter size. So I just put them in like a flat, like kind of manila envelope style envelope and just send them. So yeah. Yeah, no, thank you
I'm in.
for being on the show. Yeah, I'll get you one. Sweet.
Sounds good, man.
I'm
Thank you
gonna,
again for having me.
yeah, of course. I'm gonna stop the recording now.